Have you ever had a moment when your intuition felt so clear you couldn't ignore it? Maybe you thought of someone and suddenly they called, or you sensed the energy in a room before a single word was spoken. These subtle experiences are not random, and they are not to be discounted. In fact, they are glimpses of the psychic awareness that lives within each of us. Today, I want to share how Reiki opened me to intuitive awareness, psychic abilities, and what it really means to awaken these senses. I also want to share some simple practices you can begin today to strengthen your own intuition. Namaste and welcome to the Spiritual Wealth Podcast. I'm Alexandra Savitri Amba, Reiki Master, Vedic Healing Master, and Spiritual Guide. I'm founder of the American Reiki Academy and the Vedic Healing Center. I've studied with gurus in India, led pilgrimages to India, and taught Reiki, healing, Vedic healing, feng shui, and spiritual growth for over 30 years. In this show, I share practices from Reiki, meditation, Vedic healing, mantra, and metaphysics to help you awaken your inner power, expand your awareness, and manifest a life of peace, love, and abundance. Today's episode is entitled Reiki and the Path to Intuitive Awareness, the Subtle Awakening of Psychic Abilities. As always, we shall start with a chant. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Punaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvina Vadidamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. When people hear the word psychic, they often think of predicting the future or fortune telling. But true psychic awareness is something much deeper, I would venture to say. It's really the awakening of subtle spiritual senses that help us navigate life with greater clarity, compassion, and ultimately alignment. So for me, this awakening unfolded through Reiki at first. The more I practiced Reiki, the more I could sense energy in myself, in others, and in the spaces around me. At first, I would say it was subtle. It was kind of like a sudden impression. And then over time, those impressions became much more clear. Reiki was, I would say, kind of polishing a lens within me, the lens of my own awareness, until eventually I could perceive more of what was already there. And also, I would eventually stop discounting and doubting what I was receiving. So this is how our intuitive faculties develop, gradually, naturally, through practice and openness. And the beautiful truth of all of this is that we all have these abilities. They are not reserved for a chosen few. They are part of being human and connecting with subtle energies. Reiki simply gives us the tools to remember this essence that lives within us and these non-physical sensations. So Today I thought I would talk to you about how we begin to cultivate this awareness, and I wanted to share a few practical tips. Before I do that, I want to say that these days I live my life from a place of intuitive guidance, and I often in my classes challenge or suggest to students to also do this. In other words, what would your life be like if you followed your intuitive guidance at every moment? It is the tapping into this intuitive guidance that brings about the psychic development, the intuitive development. So it's really a movement from the intellect into the third eye, where all of your psychic awareness lives. So let's go over some techniques for developing intuitive and psychic awareness. The first one, obviously, I am going to suggest to listeners is that you learn Reiki. This is not just because it's something that I teach. It is because it is something that I have personally experienced and witnessed developing these intuitive faculties in students and in myself. Reiki is kind of like a direct path to awakening the intuition because it attunes you to the flow of energy. Reiki means universal life force energy. So it's not a physical thing that you can touch. You're sitting at a table, you can touch the table. We are touching energy when we learn Reiki. And although that can at first sound kind of out there, as you move into your abilities as a healer, as a healing practitioner, as a Reiki practitioner, as a spiritual practitioner, as a yoga practitioner, you start to understand these subtle energies are as real, if not more real, I might suggest, than the table you are sitting in front of. So through the practice of Reiki, you learn to feel energy in your hands, to sense blockages in someone you are working on, and receive impressions. Reiki really, I would say, opens the door to psychic perception in a safe, gentle, and very grounded way. So that is my first suggestion, that you learn Reiki if you have not already. If you have already learned Reiki, then I would say develop it. Practice it. Move through the levels. Each level of Reiki brings you something deeper. And really use it in all sorts of imaginative and creative ways. We can give Reiki to our water, to our food, to projects we're working on, to things we're trying to manifest, to our animals, to our homes. There's so many uses for Reiki. The other day I had to have what I thought could potentially be a challenging phone conversation, and I gave Reiki to the conversation before it took place. You can also give Reiki to past occurrences, to past upsets. There are many ways to use Reiki. So learn Reiki if you have not, if you would like to, if you're interested in developing your intuitive faculties, and if you have learned Reiki, use it. Move through the levels. Use it with clarity, with creativity, with intention, with an expanded manner. In the class, you are taught hand positions, and those are basic hand positions. After that, you develop yourself as a healer, and that is when the energy really takes root in your energy field and in your system. So the second tip I have for developing your psychic awareness is that you meditate daily. Psychic awareness arises in stillness. Even 10 minutes a day of dedicated meditation quiets the mind, and basically it tunes you in to subtle inner senses. Meditation clears away the noise outside of you and the noise within you that keeps your intuition hidden. So the thing about meditation is you will practice it and do it on a daily basis, hopefully, and you may not know right away the benefits, but over time, you will absolutely know the benefits. It's just like exercise, really. The first time you go out for a walk after a long time, you'll feel good, but you may not know the incredible benefits of that walk until you keep walking on a daily basis. And just like exercise, again, meditation is cumulative. So the more you do it, the more you commit to it, the more dedicated you are, the deeper you go, the longer your meditations are, the more you reap the benefits. And one of the benefits is developing your psychic awareness. The third tip I would say for today is something a little bit tricky for people. It is to trust your subtle impressions. So when you get a gut feeling, don't dismiss it. Instead, honor it, listen to it, write it down if you need to. Over time, you will notice patterns that confirm your inner knowing. And this trust of the subtle impressions is like a muscle. So the more you start to do it, the stronger the trust becomes, and the more the messages will flow to you in a really beautiful and exquisite and undeniable way. So sometimes I tell my students, because we have a tendency to preface things in our experience with phrases like this. I hear people say, "This may sound crazy, but," and I say, no, just say it. Just eliminate the preface. No more, "This may sound crazy, but," "Oh, this may sound out there, but." You know, there is a tendency in our society, which is very mental body based, to judge these kind of subtle senses as being out there. Woo-woo, right? You hear the term all the time. "Oh, that's woo," or "That's woo-woo." Well, when you are really immersed in understanding the spirit and energy, none of this is woo. We could say the whole world, the material world, is woo. In Sanskrit, there's a term Maya, which means illusion. So the spiritual practitioner thinks that this material world is Maya, is illusion. The spiritual practitioner doesn't just think that, he or she knows it. Because when we know that the spirit is eternal, we know that everything here around us, this table, this computer, this plant, this money on, I've got a little bowl in front of me with coins, these coins, the pens and pencils and the papers and all the material objects around me, these are elusive. These are transitory. They are going to go away. They are not something we will take with us, certainly. And at some point, they will disintegrate. They will leave. But spirit never leaves. The energy of who you are as a being never, ever ends. And so trust these subtle impressions and start to watch your words and consciously eliminate those phrases. That's something that I have worked on over the years so that I don't say, this is going to sound really weird, but this thing happened in my dream, or I had this vision. No, instead I say, I had this vision. I don't preface it with, this may sound weird. And the more I've done that, the more I've given credence to my own impressions. And we all know that when you give credence to something, it expands. So anything you do over and over amplifies. So if you tell a child, you're great, I love you, you're so wise, you're talented, that energy within the child has the potential to expand. And so if you're always discounting the child's abilities, that also is going to expand. That negativity has the potential to expand within that being. So in the same way, within you, when you get psychic impressions, if you're always prefacing those impressions by saying, oh, this may sound a little weird, or I know I'm kind of out there. No, you're not out there. You're actually very, very, very tuned in when you're receiving impressions. And we do have to learn how to assess what we're receiving and filter things through the intuition. And we do learn how to distinguish between kind of a message from the ego versus a message from the intuition. But once we learn that, it becomes very simple and very easy to step into, and very powerful and helpful in our lives. So the fourth tip for today is to practice energy awareness. What I mean by this is you can try simple exercises with a friend. You can, for instance, hold your hands a few inches from their body, whether you know or don't know Reiki, and move around their energy field. Notice any warmth, tingling, shifts, any perceptions that you're receiving, and again, eliminate that doubt and just practice this. So what you're doing is you are clearing your sensitivity. You're clearing out the debris between you and your sensitivity. And the more you do such kind of exercises, some kind of energy awareness exercises, the more you can develop these senses. There are many such exercises. They're really fun to do. I explore them in my Reiki level 2 class, and everybody loves this part of the class. So you're tuning into subtle awareness that helps you tap into your psychic abilities. And again, ultimately, this tuning in is going to help you in your life. So the last tip I might suggest for today, or I'm going to say, I have one more after this. Okay, the second to last is to use mantra to refine your vibration. So sacred sounds like Om or any kind of mantra that you identify with, these sacred sounds purify the mind and raise your vibration. Chanting creates clarity in your energy field. It actually does so much. It clears out negative emotions. It calms the mind. Today I was telling someone, I was coaching someone in having mastery over her mind. And she said to me, "What are you talking about?" So what I mean is all of these beautiful techniques that we have, meditation, Reiki, yoga asanas, mantra chanting specifically, all create a situation in which we can have mastery over our minds so that the mind is not in control of us. We are the navigator of the ship. So the mind is just one part of us, and we can learn to again have mastery over these thoughts. You know, one of the mantras I teach gives you mastery over your thoughts, your words, your actions. And if you can imagine having mastery over your thoughts, words, and actions, you can become quite pure, quite clear, quite powerful. So every thought, every word, every action is done with attention, with awareness. Your thoughts are not leading you willy-nilly or down a path that is not very productive. And your words are chosen with greater care and deliberation so that you do not harm people with your words, and your actions also are done with care and kindness. So these mantras are absolutely magical because they do so many things to help you again navigate this life with greater ease, with greater clarity, with greater personal power. And each mantra brings you a wealth of energetic benefits that will ultimately help your intuitive and psychic abilities develop. So the very last tip I want to give today, and I was going to end with talking about mantras, and then I thought, no, there's one more thing I want to say. That's why I said that working with mantras is actually the second to last tip. So the last tip is to be in silence daily. Now, this is different from being in meditation, a little bit different. Silence is such a powerful tool that you can implement in different moments throughout the day, especially at dawn and dusk, just to sit quietly without speaking. In that stillness, subtle impressions will naturally rise. And this is one of the greatest secrets that I would say all spiritual masters know, or they find out, which is to spend ample and regular time in silence. In India, the term is mauna, and often when you visit an ashram, people will be consciously in mauna. They might even wear a little tag on them that tells others I'm in silence. It'll say in mauna, and that's the key to, understanding that person is not going to speak back to you. It's such an amazing practice. I think I've said in at least one podcast episode to try to start your day in silence, but consciously not speaking to others in your household, not speaking to yourself, not speaking to your animals, just not speaking, just consciously not allowing any sound to come from your mouth. The first sounds that come from your mouth, I would suggest, should be, if you want to develop with these techniques, should be mantras, should be sacred sound, not would you like a piece of toast, or oh, I forgot to take the trash out. So you have plenty of time to say those things, but how about starting your day with a mantra, starting with chanting Om, whatever the mantra is that resonates with you. We do repetitions of mantras, and we do this on a regular basis, just like somebody goes to the gym and does repetitions with weights. We're going to do repetitions with mantra. So first we start, though, in complete silence. And it is in silence that we receive. It has been said that, what is that expression? That prayer is where you ask God for something, and meditation is where you receive messages. So I'm not necessarily even talking about meditation. I did talk about that in one of the tips here. I think it was the second tip, to spend time in meditation. I'm specifically talking about consciously just being in silence, because you will have the whole day available to you in which you can speak to others, and you probably will speak to yourself too. We tend to do that, and it's kind of amusing to ourselves. But so consciously cultivating this silence, it's a form of stillness, stilling the chatter, the words that come from your mouth. So when I speak about psychic awakening, I don't mean something necessarily dramatic, although sometimes it feels a little dramatic, where you get a very clear message or hit or impression. But I don't mean something out of reach. I mean remembering the subtle awareness that has always lived inside of you. It always will be inside of you. It's part of you. So Reiki, meditation, mantra, moving through your yoga asanas, being in silence, these kind of components of the spiritual practice help clear static so that your intuition can shine, and you will kind of amaze yourself too. You'll be kind of outside of the experience when you get very clear psychic messages and say, oh, that's so interesting. Where did that come from? Well, it came from spirit. It came from that energetic presence that is within you, which you have consciously stilled. You have stilled the activity so that that presence can speak to you. These abilities are not about being extraordinary. They are about uncovering the extraordinary that has always been within you. And honestly, when you begin to live with intuitive awareness, life flows so much more harmoniously. You feel guided, protected, and connected to spirit in a way that brings deep, deep peace and comfort and support. And we can't really ask for more than that. A life where we are peaceful, where we have comfort, and we have support. We know that all will be well, that all is well, that all has always been well. So past, present, future, all has always been well. All is always well in this moment, and all will be well. Thank you for joining me today. May you walk your own path of intuitive awakening, guided by your spiritual practice and, I would say, the timeless wisdom of your inner self. Om Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Om Sai Ram. Jai Guruji. Om Amrite Shwariye Namaha. Hare Krishna. Om Namah Shivaya.